Florida might be on the path to America's next national park. A proposal is on the table to create Florida Springs National Park. But what's really being proposed? And what would it mean for locals and visitors? Let's dive in. Florida currently has 3 official national parks: the Everglades, Dry Tortugas, and Biscayne. They're all down in South Florida. Each offers something a little bit different. You got swamps and gators, a massive island fort, and coral reefs. And Florida also has 2 national monuments: Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine and Fort Matanzas just down the coast. National monuments are just a little bit different. They're protected sites honoring history on a smaller scale than big national parks. So Florida already has a nice little lineup of National Park Services sites, but none of them showcase freshwater springs or Florida's inland wilderness like forests and prairies. And that's where this proposal comes in. In August of 2025, Congressman Randy Fine introduced the Path to Florida Springs National Park Act. But don't get too excited or annoyed just yet, there's a lot more to it. This act doesn't create a park right away, it just orders a special study to see if this idea is even feasible. Think of it as a job interview before the job offer. The study area spans about 2,800 square miles, covering parts near Jacksonville, Gainesville, and Orlando, and it ropes in places like the Ocala National Forest, Paynes Prairie Preserve, Silver Spring State Park, Blue Spring State Park, and some state forests like Jennings and Matanzas. In total, more than 40 existing state parks, forests, and refuges could be merged into one big interconnected system. So roughly, it's this area, give or take. As Jonathan Rubin of the Clean Earth Initiative put it, by merging the borders of more than 40 existing state parks and forests into a single national park, we protect not just the surface land, but everything underground. And immediately my big question about this is, what would this even look like? These sites they're talking about are pretty spread out. There's roads and farms and towns in between them. It's not really obvious to me how you're going to connect them into one big cohesive park, and I'm thinking it could end up looking more like some wildly gerrymandered district. But I mean, I guess that's what the study is for. So why are we doing this now? Well, Florida Springs are under a lot of pressure. Silver Springs alone has lost about 30% of its historic flow. Nutrients, algae blooms, and overdevelopment are taking a big toll. Congressman Randy Fine, who introduced the bill, explained, "The idea is to commemorate our Florida Springs on a level like the Everglades or Yellowstone or Yosemite. Our Florida Springs are something unique, not just to Florida, but to the country." Now, there are springs in other parts of the country, like Big Spring in Missouri or Barton Springs in Texas, but Florida is on another level. The state has more than 1,000 mapped springs. That's the highest concentration in the entire world. And some are massive first magnitude springs, pumping out tens of millions of gallons of water every day. And nowhere else are they this clear, this accessible, and this tied to everyday recreation. Florida springs are pretty unique, they're really iconic, and that's what this proposal wants to highlight. So here's how it works. The Park Service study checks some boxes like significance, suitability, and feasibility. Then Congress has to pass a new law. And it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. The last 2 national parks created were Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri back in 2018, and Indiana Dunes along the shores of Lake Michigan in 2019. So yeah, it's rare, but Florida Springs could be next. There is some pretty recent precedent for this. And is it just me, or is it kind of weird that Gateway Arch is now a national park? I mean, it's cool and really iconic and all, but it's also man-made and it's like a giant stainless steel croquet wicket on the Mississippi River. Not exactly Yellowstone. I mean, that's kind of what I thought the national monuments were for. But hey, if Silver Springs and Paynes Prairie join that short list, Florida Springs will be rubbing elbows with some very prestigious company. Supporters of the plan highlight big upsides: national recognition and protection for unique springs, more ecotourism and local business opportunities, stronger conservation for the Florida aquifer and local wildlife, and it would give us a bit more geographic balance. Right now, all 3 of Florida's national parks are in the south, so a Springs Park would diversify the system a bit and put a northern Florida park on the map. And no other U.S. park showcases freshwater springs like this one would. It would be a pretty unique park protecting a pretty unique resource. I think that makes a bit of sense. A Springs National Park would protect an ecosystem that's totally unique and very Florida and help keep more overdevelopment at bay. A lot of this land is currently managed by the state as either a state park or wildlife management area, but those designations haven't kept real estate developers from trying. And I definitely think this would raise their national profile. Visitors coming down here for theme parks might add a day trip to Florida Springs National Park, which I do think sounds kind of cool. I do like the proposed name. I know I would go at least a little bit out of my way to visit a national park if it was right in the backyard of a place I was visiting anyway. And I think national park status would shine a spotlight on the springs in a way calling them state parks just doesn't. It's good for conservation, good for Florida tourism, and a great way to showcase the more natural, real side of Florida. But there are some cons and concerns. Remember, don't get too worked up in either direction just yet. This is just a study, no guarantee of a park, not even close. The Park Service has a deferred maintenance backlog right now of about $23 billion. That's roads, trails, and visitor centers that currently need attention and repairs right now. Staffing is also pretty strained. I'm sure you've been watching the news. Since early 2025, nearly a quarter of permanent employees have been lost, while visitation is at record highs. So the national park system is spread really thin right now. That means fewer rangers, fewer programs, and slower repairs and rescues. And finally, activities like hunting or off-roading, which are currently allowed in Ocala National Forest, could be restricted under new national park rules. Now, I'm not a hunter myself, but I do get why people would be concerned and wouldn't want to be told they can no longer hunt in a place they've been hunting for years. I get that. But if this does become a national park, personally, I'd prioritize protection while still allowing low-impact recreation, kayaking, hiking, and swimming. Absolutely. Fishing, go for it. ATVs tearing up the ground? Probably not. So what's next? For now, nothing changes. The bill needs to pass, then the study has to be done, and only then could Congress vote. It's a pretty long process. Don't hold your breath that this is going to get done anytime soon. But it is pretty cool to think about the possibilities and think about a future with a brand new Florida Springs National Park right here in this part of the state. So what do you think? Should Florida Springs National Park become a reality and become the 64th national park in the country? Personally, I think it's a little bit pie in the sky. I don't know if this is ever going to become a reality, but it is pretty cool to think about, and I kind of like the idea about it. But let me know what you think. Realistic? Crazy? Do you like the idea? Do you hate the idea? Let me know. I'm really interested to hear what people have to say about this. This is kind of a weird one. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I bring you Florida's hidden gems, big tourist attractions, and everything in between. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you around the Sunshine State.